Hello, out there in the internet land. It's Matt Orr, the convention coordinator again. I'm back to talk to another IGDN member. And today I'm joined by Jason Pitre of Genesis of Legend, coming to us from Canada. So, Jason, say hello and tell us what is your featured game that you want to talk about today with us.
Hey there. It's great to be here, and thank you for having me and for going out of your way to feature folks who can't always make it to conventions stateside. Before the pandemic, I was fairly frequently attending Gen Con, Origins, and other conventions, but it's a different world since 2020.
It's a different world since 2020.
Um,
That's yeah, for real.
yeah, so I've been busy designing back at home in Ottawa, Canada. I'm technically on the Quebec side of Ottawa-Gatineau, which means I can design in both English and French, and I have actually. One of my more recent games, Palanquin, has also been translated by me with some extensive assistance into French. So that's a little feather in my cap.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Translation is a special beast. English is my first language, but I also speak French. And I've got a lot of French background, hence my name with the exciting R. So yeah. So I've been working away on a number of projects of late with the small team at Genesis of Legend Publishing. It's myself plus our in-house editor, Christopher Rothwell, who's a fairly new addition to the team. And we typically work on about, 2 games at a time. So right now I'm doing layout for Once More Into the Void by Ray Najadi. We've already gotten some handouts sent out to backers, and I need to do the layout so that both backers can get digital copies of the game, and so that we can proceed with printing, because printing in a time of inflation and COVID and supply messiness is exciting.
Yeah, it's probably not going to get better that soon.
Which is why I want to get it printed now.
Sure.
Because I got paid in pre-inflation dollars.
Oh yeah,
I'd like to print in pre-inflation dollars too. Thank you.
Right, exactly. So that's what you're working on now. Is that connected to either the SIG universe or the After the War universe that you've got already, or is this a whole new project?
It's a whole new project. There's a careful balance of trying to expand existing product lines and settings, along with a need to expand and go further. Once More Into the Void is a co-publishing venture that we have with Sword Queen Games, where we're using our publishing experience to help bring Ray's excellent design to the market. Because Ray, naturally enough, has less experience working with distributors and making sure games get to conventions, etc. Mm-hmm. The physical printing process.
Right.
But their designs are rock solid. He's also designed Our Haunt, Apocalypse Keys, which recently funded on Kickstarter. Like a dozen other games. He's ridiculously productive. We've been working on that. We also have SIG, which is our Planar Fantasy setting that has 2 main iterations. SIG Manual of the Primes, which is our own system that explores sort of planar fantasy with an emphasis on collaborative world building and confronting your beliefs. and our other version, which is Sig City of Blades, which is the same setting but adapted for Blades in the Dark, which includes some nifty little mechanical tweaks to the Forged in the Dark system. Beyond that, we're also working on our next supplement for our game After the War. After the War is a game of mimetic horror, co-designed by myself and Alistair Stewart. And it is a game inspired by series such as Killjoys. There's some Firefly in there. And there's a decent bit of The Expanse and some Star Trek. Like it's all mixed in there. Basically, 10 years after the Galactic War, the millions of survivors are trying to rebuild on this desolate frontier world.
Okay.
But the mimetic weapons from the war are still hanging around and causing all sorts of trouble.
Sure. 10 years after the war is when Babylon 5 starts as well. So
yep. Yeah, there's a lot of common threads here.
Sure.
So it's how do you build communities, build and maintain communities where everyone is dealing with their own trauma, which seems very topical for some reason.
Sure. Yeah. I think I've taken time to flip through After the War, and I think it's a challenging. It sounds like, why would you want to play this when you say it like, oh, it's a terrible thing, but all these terrible things have happened and are continuing to happen. But I think, from I'm not played it. I'm not certainly not an expert, but I think you've implemented well what you're trying to do with the game. Like, you've explained how to do it, it seems, just from reading it. So we'll just clip it out. I was saying that I think you've implemented the challenging things you were trying to do with After the War well. You've explained in the rules how to do those things. It's a challenging concept, and just from me flipping through the book, I think it seems to be able to accomplish what a very high concept.
Yep. And high concept is kind of the thing we do. So all of our games try to teach people certain things. And the hope is that with After the War, the game will actually teach people how to be gentle with each other and treat other people's trauma respectfully, how to build safe communities by being conscientious of the challenges that each of us face. So that's the hope. And hope is actually a pretty strong theme of the game. That even though things have been terrible, you can still build something better. If you're careful and considerate, you can build something better.
That's a great message for almost every age of human history, as far as I know.
Pretty much. So we're currently working on a supplement for that, titled Songfall Survivors, which we're hoping to drop early 2023. That is a hope for the future, assuming that we can all be considerate of each other, and that no, mutated Tormenta infected Ravagers break into my house.
That's a situation to be avoided for sure. And the game you were talking about before, the Into the Void, when is sort
Once More Into the Void? Yes.
Yeah. When is that sort of theoretical? Theoretically, when would you like to have it into the world by?
I would love to have it out in the world by the end of the calendar year if I could manage it.
Okay. Sooner than the other thing.
Sooner than the other thing.
Okay.
More precisely, I need to give this out to patient backers before I can do such things like try to crowdfund Songfall survivors.
Right. Right.
So I wish to get this out in the world. It's also beautiful. Like it's some lovely stuff, and I can't wait for other people to get their hands on it.
All right. Well, we'll all look forward to seeing it. So, I want to ask you a little bit about the convention scene in Ottawa, and like you've been to Gen Con, you said, and Origins. So like, probably I'm gonna guess that like obviously Gen Con is famously said to be like the largest dedicated tabletop event in North America. So it's obviously not going to be as big as that. But like, do you have a active scene? Are there conventions frequently throughout the year, small scale ones? Do you have dedicated tabletop things, or do you have just the normal general nerd shows that you have the little tabletop corner at the place? Like, do people cosplay? Like, do you
Yep.
get what's the anyway? So that's a bunch of questions. Like, just tell us,
Yep.
tell us about it.
So Ottawa is a moderate sized city. It's Ottawa itself is about 1 million, and we've got about 300,000 on the Quebec side on top of that. So we actually have had a long running convention called CanGames, which has been around since the 70s.
Wow.
And Gygax actually showed up. You can see it in Dragon issue number 5 that the convention was advertised as Gygax showing up to our little regional convention. That was originally a more of a miniatures convention, but expanded to cover role playing and board games fairly cohesively. It's been sort of the central rallying point for the local gaming community, and we've had multiple generations of attendees.
Well, that's always fun.
I believe we've had the first grandkids show up to the convention.
Sure. I mean, there's enough time for it.
Yeah. And full disclosure, I'm on the board of directors, so I'm helping to try to modernize it, bring it into the 21st century, and deal with some of the challenges that have emerged due to COVID.
Sure. I imagine it's not been easy to plan an event. You know, it's been hard enough to go to events.
Yeah.
To plan to go to events, let alone organize the whole event.
We canceled. It was a challenge to decide, but we canceled CanGames this calendar year in 2022, in part because we were uncertain exactly where the pandemic was going when we were doing that. And then, fortunately, it turned out that it was very good news because we got hit by a massive weather event that knocked out power in the city for about a week. All exactly right. Over the weekend when we would have had the convention.
Ooh, yeah, that would have.
So we dodged a hurricane.
There you go. There you go. Worked out.
But yeah, no, we're coming back next year, which is great. I'm excited to see people. And beyond that, I also will be going back to travel. I love attending the double exposure conventions, DexCon, Dreamation, and Metatopia in Morristown, New Jersey. I have gone to Origins and Gen Con in the past, and our products are there, thanks to the kind contributions of the Indie Game Developer Network and certain Mr. Orr.
Well,
and at some point, I'm going to have to make my way down to Big Bad Con.
Oh yeah, that's people talk about that one a lot. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we've got a fairly large community. Game designers and other game professionals in this region used to include Alex Roberts of For the Queen and Starcrossed fame. We also include Mark Richardson, who designed the game Headspace. We've got Jim Davies, who renamed his game, so the name of it is failing me, but it's a mouse game that's awesome by Gallant Knight, I
yeah.
believe.
Things that go squeak in the night, I think.
Yes,
Is what it
yes.
was called.
It used to be called the Mycenaean Council.
I believe I just talked to him recently, so I think that still exists within the game. Like
Great.
Can visit the Mycenaean. You're part of the Mycenaean Council, yes.
So we've got Fraser Ronald of Sword. I forget the name of his company off the top of my head, but Fraser Ronald, who's done a number of games, including Sword Noir, Nefertiti Overdrive, etc. We've got Todd Crapper, who's been doing a lot of work on Survival of the Able, a lot of graphic design work, and is designing his own games.
He did the Vision Layers. That was him,
yep,
right?
Vision Layers, yep. We actually have Dyson Logos local to us. So
well,
we're drowning in maps.
Well, I was going to ask you about Canadian content from your area, but like you've kind of already anticipated that question and just given me a whole list of local shout outs. So
yep.
Anybody that wants Canadian content, there you go. Like there's a whole long list.
Yeah. We've got a LARP scene. We were doing mega games. There's a lot of stuff going on here.
Awesome. Is there I'm not even sure what I'm trying to ask, but is sort of like not a feedback loop, but like, do you feel like, okay, so we have a long running con, we've got all these local game designers, then the game designers bring their content to the convention, and then the public, like designers and publishers are here, so people see that it's a thing that they can do, and then now you're in the third generation of the convention, so like is it just, can you see that there's attraction like that, or is it just happens to be the way it is?
There is a bit of a cycle. We do play testing at the convention. We drag people in. We've run workshops to get people started. And we've got a fairly robust board game community locally as well, which is delightful. So yeah, no, things are going in the correct direction. It's just always a challenge to also ensure that our spaces are as welcoming and inclusive as possible.
Sure.
So that we don't have the local industry filled with nothing but cis white men of a certain age, because that's a natural tendency that we need to actively pay attention to. We actively pay attention to avoid by ensuring that we have an inclusive, safe space for all kinds of creators to thrive.
Right. Of course. You mentioned earlier being on the board at your local con, so I just naturally assumed that was your one of your roles that you had assigned to yourself for that role in that ship, or that process.
Yes, indeed. So I think that we're on a good path going forward. And I'm excited to see what other games and related products come out of our local community.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear about them when the time is right. So speaking of hearing about them, I think the last thing to ask you then is to tell us where people can find the products that do exist. Like, is there late pledge for any of the games that you're publishing? What's the Genesis of Legend home on the web? Where can people find you?
So this was a slightly different answer about a week ago.
Oh.
You can find our website at www.genesisoflegend.com or genesisoflegend.ca. And you can also find us on Mastadon. I'm at Genesis of Legend at dice.camp. I was most of my presence was on Twitter for a decade. Where I was at Genesis of Legend, and folks can still find a lot of my content there. I also run the RPG Design Panelcast, which folks can Google up and find fairly easily. It's what's the actual URL for that one? I'll get that later. But yeah, so if anyone looks for the RPG Design Panelcast, it's got some of the best recorded panels and seminars about game design and publishing.
All right.
And it has almost 10 years of content at this point, which is terrifying.
That's it keep adding to the end. It keeps getting longer.
And
right.
If anyone wants to contact me, you can drop me a line, genesisoflegend@gmail.com.
There you go. A whole lot of ways to talk to Jason if you want to, and check out his games, his publishing efforts. Jason, thank you so much for your time today, and we will see you on the internet.
Thank you very much for having me. Happy gaming all.